Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Ultimate Doctor Who Marathon, where I take a look at every classic Doctor Who story, plus quite a lot of the Big Finish audio dramas, one episode per day. And today, on the 16th of November 2017, we are starting the finale to Season 4. I can't believe I'm actually 4 seasons in, and it hasn't even been a year yet, with The Evil of the Daleks, Episode 1, which is interesting because this is the second Dalek story of the season. Oddly enough, when every other season has previously only had one, I find this interesting that it has two. And the second one to be written by David Whittaker, who I guess is going to be writing the Daleks after now that Terry Nation has moved on from the show, he's a pretty good choice. Power of the Daleks was an excellent introduction, and Evil of the Daleks is on par with, at least so far, is on par with Power, as this time we open right at the end of the Faceless Ones with the TARDIS. It's been stolen, and the first episode plays very much like a murder, like a mystery of, like, we're trying to figure out who this TARDIS is. We're trying to figure out who this Edward Waterfield guy is. He's an old guy, and he sells antiques. The story really keeps you guessing, like, and you're waiting for the Daleks to show up. And the big cliffhanger is the Daleks show up, but it's weird that they're working with this old guy who sells antiques, which obviously makes sense when it turns to why he would know the Doctor, but he's not a villain we've had before. I mean, and he doesn't seem to be acting like. I mean, the only closest thing would be, of course, the meddling monk, but I know he's not the meddling monk, so it's interesting just sort of to see. I haven't seen the story in a while, like, just sort of a character who sort of knows the Doctor by almost reputation. Like, he seems to have a picture of Jamie for some reason, which is weird, because where would he get that picture? Because Jamie's from a time before the camera, so, how would Jamie be able to get his picture taken? And it sort of has this mystery, and it sort of realized, no, it's the Daleks doing it entirely. They are the ones behind everything. I mean, a lot of this episode is really just the side characters sort of being espionage, where the Doctor is really just doing a bunch of, I guess you could call it detective work. It really feels like detective work, just because that's sort of where the story seems to be going, is that you have Doctor deciding to be all detective-y and, like, okay, how are we gonna, like, why, where's the TARDIS? And, I mean, by the end of the episode, the TARDIS is still missing, and the Doctor hasn't discovered it, but the big reveal is that, like, a guy who works for Waterfield discovers a secret bookcase with all this future technology, and it's really cool future technology, and that actually the Daleks seem to be behind it, and that's really where the episode ends. I'm watching the loose cannon reconstruction. It's actually a pretty decent reconstruction so far. There aren't many clips that exist, except, of course, the cliffhanger, which was repeated in episode 2, which, of course, does exist in its entirety. It'll be nice to actually have not have have another episode after Power of the Daleks was entirely missing. And, of course, having the sort of gap of Faceless Ones, episode 4, 5, 6, and now this being a 4-1. But then again, we have another 5 missing episodes after that before we get to actually our first full story that isn't missing with Patrick Troughton, which is kind of really sad. Mainly just because you really feel like a lot of Troughton's Doctor is, missing, and I can't. You can get a handle on Troughton's Doctor, you really know how he's playing it, but it's hard when you don't see him. I'd also find interesting, Jamie actually gets to flirt with some ladies again, and it is hilarious because he doesn't get it. Like, they're looking at his skirt because he's still wearing his traditional Scottish kilt, and Fraser Hines just plays it wonderfully. He is an excellent actor. There isn't really much more to say. It'll be interesting just to see where the story goes, especially with episode 2 existing. So I'm going to give The Evil of the Daleks episode 1 a 10 out of 10 because it is continuing the streak from the Faceless Ones episode 6 that we are getting really good episodes. And it'll be nice to see the Daleks back. Right, it is the 17th of November 2017, and I just finished watching The Evil of the Daleks episode 2, and I have to say that this episode, in particular, is just as good as episode 1 was, mainly because this one we actually seem to be thrust headfirst into the plot. We get introduced to the plot that mainly the Daleks are using time travel, and they want to perform experiments on humans. mainly, mainly just because they are here in the Victorian era, because some people, this Edward Waterfield guy, he's actually from the Victorian era, and a guy he's working with, Theodore Maxtible, who looks kind of like Karl Marx, basically did these experiments on mirrors, and their mirrors essentially created a portal, so mainly so the mainly so the mainly so that the Daleks actually just appeared unintentionally. They weren't meaning the Daleks to show up, but they just sort of did, and it's explained very well in the episode. I can't really explain it here in so few words. They're holding this guy's daughter captive, and everything. A lot of weird stuff seems to be happening in this house. Like we get basically the Doctor and Jamie are transported back to Victorian times, and they are essentially they're there just to like be the we need to save everything, so we need your help, Doctor. So the Doctor is there, and I think Jamie's just sort of the lab rat, and that'll be interesting. And the big episode ends is like the experiment is gonna begin, or you're all gonna die. And I like that aspect of the episode. We sort of have a feel. We know where the story seems to be going, and we know what's sort of gonna probably happen, even if we don't get the perfect explanation for everything. So the episode just sort of continues on at a very, very good pace with the Doctor and company. The Doctor essentially being there just to, just to be there, basically to basically he's just there because sort of the Daleks need him, and that's an interesting idea, and there isn't much of an explanation of everything, but it's a very, very good sort of we have a mad scientist plot, and I kind of like where we're going. It's just as good as the last one. I'm glad we're in a different setting, and we're not necessarily on present Earth. We've moved to Victorian times, and I think we're probably going to stay there for the most part. And what's nice is that we have the TARDIS still hostage. Like, we still haven't seen it yet. So that's gonna be interesting just to see how everything sort of goes. Mainly that if the TARDIS is going to be totally destroyed, or the Daleks will actually keep their word, which I doubt they will. But it's good to actually see the Daleks back. So much so that and we are introduced to Edward Waterfield's daughter, Victoria, who I guess is going to be our new companion. She has a little bit to do, mainly that they're keeping her captive. She's the most interesting of characters. Mainly she hasn't done much in this first episode, so I don't blame her for that, because she's only had a couple of lines. She was introduced almost well over halfway into the episode, so she didn't have too much to do. I hope she'll do a little more in the next one, so we'll have to see on that front. So all in all, I'll give The Evil of the Daleks Episode 2 another 10 out of 10, because it is a great episode and a great continuation of the story, and I'll be back tomorrow with Episode 3. It is now the 18th of November 2017, and I just finished watching The Evil of the Daleks Episode 3. Continuing the winning streak of this story, this one ups the ante, gives us the Doctor and Jamie, gives us some really nice character drama between the two characters, as the Doctor essentially breaks Jamie's trust in him down into, like, from, them being pretty close to, to the Doctor essentially being all, this isn't your, essentially just manipulating Jamie into doing what he wants. Like, Jamie is their is the test subject for the human factor, and it's really sort of the start of the experiment. The episode goes by extremely quickly, with not much time to really breathe, which is great. Victoria sadly doesn't do much, but she still gets enough that she's essentially being moved around the house, as it were. and her being moved around the house is a pretty large part of the plot, as she is moving around and is basically being carted from one room to another room, in what is essentially just the almost it's filler, but it's filler that's done very. It's a very, very well done instance of filler in Doctor Who, mainly because of just how well the characters are in fact portrayed. The Doctor is great, and we sort of have this big ending where Marxtible, he has this guy Kemmel mainly there basically just to be like, right, you need to stop Jamie at all costs, and that's basically where the episode ends, and it is a great ending. You have everything just sort of building to that, and it really, again, it builds a lot of tension. It keeps everything flowing very, very well, and we get a good sense that the action is increasing towards something bigger. I don't have much more to say about this one, except that it gets a 10 out of 10. Alright, it is the 19th of November 2017, and I just finished watching The Evil of the Daleks, Episode 4, and I have to say that this episode was interesting for one regard, that it is your typical middle-of-a-story episode, but writer David Whittaker really finds a way to make it not boring at all. Essentially, this one's just Jamie going to try to rescue Victoria after having to wrestle Kemmel, and, well, sort of describe it, I'll have to definitely spoil it. What's really nice is that what's interesting is that one thing David Whittaker does is he sort of makes the Doctor not have a presence, mainly by having him sort of narrate the experiences, which that's sort of just an interesting little idea that I think could have been capitalized on in other stories where you have a middle episode. It sort of feels right that the Doctor would be commenting on this entire thing. But what else could I say? And Patrick Troughton, he's playing it very, very seriously here. He's not nearly as much of a clown, which I really quite like. That he's reined it in just a little bit to keep the gravity of the situation as just sort of what it really should be for this story. It's a very, very serious. This is sort of the story I'm doing. This is where we're going with the story, and I am probably in a hard place, and he's obviously turning the gears, and I really like that. Fraser Hines is excellent as Jamie McCrimmon. He really does a good job at playing the Scot and being manipulated into doing exactly what the Doctor wants him to do, which sort of helps with the Doctor get his philosophy out to the Daleks, like why. It almost feels like you can sort of see the wheels turning in the Doctor's head while he's using Jamie, sort of to make the Daleks more human in a way. Like, that's really what they're going to do. They're probably not going to be as evil, because the Daleks are essentially inhumane creatures. That is a large, large part of what makes them Daleks, and I really like the idea that we are getting, probably something almost new for the Daleks to be. It's a very, very poignant idea that the Daleks are no longer supposed to be that. Turns out, actually, Deborah Watling had a vacation, so she didn't get too much to do, which I don't mind, because this sort of gives an interesting look into the relationship between Jamie and Kemmel, mainly because they seem to be close friends, or at least they make close friends after they fight each other. It's sort of an interesting, almost like classic epic poetry sort of thing, where it's like, I beat you in battle, so now we are friends. I quite like it. Kemmel is essentially a silent character. He's played by actor Sonny Caldanez, who will come back later to play. I know he plays an Ice Warrior, and I believe all 4 Ice Warrior stories of the classic series. But he's sadly I can't really grade too much of his performance. I imagine it's good because I imagine a lot of it just from the telesnaps is probably done through facial expressions. So that is something that I very much like. It uses some very, very interesting ideas to just sort of have a nonverbal character like that. I hope Whittaker can keep it up. Sadly, none of the rest of the story exists. This is sort of one of the things that I'd really like to find, just because it allows that sort of thing just to happen. And you just sort of get the feeling that everything is sort of there, and we get everything. I'd also like to talk about Marxtible, who is he's the guy who looks like Karl Marx, and he is a great villain. He actually has motivation. He wants to turn lead into gold. He's a greedy bastard. He's basically Karl Marx. He wants everyone to be equal. He's pretty much the opposite of Karl Marx. Like, I want all the money. Except he's not German. Why did I do a German accent for that? I don't know. I'm dumb. I don't know why I did a German accent. I just did, because German accents are fun. But I quite liked Marxtible as a character, and you sort of you get this feeling that Victoria, because we know she's still in the house, you sort of get this feeling that she's maybe behind a secret passageway, just because there are hints that, like, I heard the noise coming from the fireplace, and you have just a bunch of interesting, like, Victorian characters doing their thing, not necessarily unrelated to the main plot, but it's still good. So I'm going to give The Evil of the Daleks, Episode 4, another 10 out of 10, because we're 4 for 4 here. Hopefully the story keeps up, because we could have another really good classic on our hands. Alright, it is now the 20th of November 2017, and I just finished watching Evil of the Daleks, Episode 5, and I have to say that this one continues the winning streak that the story seems to be on, as we hurtle towards I guess we could call it the story's conclusion, even though we aren't there yet. We have 2 more episodes after this before we actually get to a conclusion. This episode mainly has the Doctor, Edward Waterfield, actually getting cold feet about working with the Daleks, but the Doctor actually gives a very, very powerful speech, basically saying, no, we have to go through with this. You had your chance to turn back. You basically passed the point of return when they invaded your house, and they stole your daughter away, and they made you steal me away. You have gone this far. You can't be getting cold feet now. Mainly, I think, because the Doctor's obviously... the Doctor knows what he's doing. He is playing the Daleks mainly for what they are. He's not really working for them. He's got a different thing. The big cliffhanger of the episode actually ended up with him putting the human factor into 3 Dalek casings, them coming alive, and then starting to play games with them, which that was a very, very interesting conclusion. That'll be very interesting to see what happens next time. But the Doctor really, his admonishing of Waterfield is a highlight of this episode. It is something that you feel very much is in character for the Doctor, and is something that the Doctor would do because he very much has this sense of duty that the world is going to... the world pretty much just needs him to survive, and they need him to keep going, basically just to see things through till the end of the story, like that it's the big driving force behind everything, that he needs to be on his wits, or else he might end up dead. I very much enjoyed that. What else? Patrick Troughton and Fraser Hines also get a couple of scenes together, where they mend up their relationship, and it is really quite a lot of fun. They are great together. Jamie and the Second Doctor are probably going to be one of the best teams. They just have this amazing chemistry it's really the typical Doctor companion relationship, like the best of friends. Even if the Doctor obviously knows more than he's letting on. Deborah Watling, the late, great Deborah Watling, who passed away just recently as Victoria Waterfield. She's really started to make an impact here. Mainly, she and Fraser Hines have this amazing chemistry. And this is one of Watling's earlier acting jobs, so she's she plays Victoria with this sort of nervousness that is great, but there's also this sort of inner strength that it only comes out in handful of scenes, but when it's there, it really shines through the story of just that Victoria is a great addition to the cast. I really enjoy what she has to bring. She is Deborah Watling is amazing as always. Excuse me, and she and Fraser Hines actually share the screen. They I know obviously they don't end up romantic, but it's a very flirty relationship where which is great. We also get some of the ending with like the domestics with Arthur Terrell almost going totally crazy, like he hasn't been eating. Like the doctor knows something's up with this guy, and he's not gonna have any of it. That's really all I have to say. Overall, great episode. So I'm gonna give the Evil of the Daleks episode 5 another 10 out of 10 as we hurtle towards a good conclusion. Alright, it is the 21st of November 2017, and I just finished watching episode 6 of The Evil of the Daleks, and there's something very unsettling about the three Daleks that have the human factor in them. There is quite a lot made of the Doctor playing games with them and giving them names, so much that David Whittaker writes them in a very human-esque manner. They feel like human people. He's very, very weird, that way, that you just sort of have the Daleks there to be, all sorts of creepy, and just, Roy Skelton gives them this very sing-song voice, almost, it's supposed to sort of imply that they're children, and I think that is personally great. It is an excellent way to make things feel like we have a full story, and that we have just about everything going towards something, and things happens. Basically, the Daleks are there, and they. I was saying they were very creepy. Sorry, there was a weird little cutout when it comes to just the recording. It was. I don't know what happened. It was odd. But the Daleks are creepy. Roy Skelton gives them a very this sing-song voice that's sort of like almost like you should trust us, but just about everything sort of goes up quite a bit as this episode is really just sort of the transition episode, and it is a great episode. It doesn't drag at all, but it knows, and it knows what it's doing. It's trying to get us. Basically, it's trying to get us to Skaro, and it does that very, very well. Like, a lot of the episode actually takes place on Skaro, and the cliffhanger leading into it, it's just leading in, is very, very interesting, as you sort of have a lot of time spent on these Daleks, and it is building tension. It knows how to be very, very creepy, and and there goes the second recording, so I'm going to try to get this done, well, we had to move the plot to Skaro, and Victoria actually gets some interesting stuff to do here, as she, and Kemble basically wander around Skaro for a bit, and we climax with meeting the Emperor of the Daleks, which is a gorgeous set piece, and that they have the TARDIS, so much so that again, this episode is just really good. It knows how to bring us everything, and the next episode is the climax with episode 7, so I'll give episode 6 another 10 out of 10, and we will be hurtling towards the end of this. Alright, it is the 22nd of November 2017, and I just finished watching The Evil of the Daleks, episode 7, and, well, it's a great conclusion. It was an excellent way to end this story with The Evil of the Daleks, episode 7, mainly, a couple notes, just on the direction. Mainly, even though it doesn't exist, you'll get some footage of the last battle, and it looks great. The ending of this is just It's an amazingly atmospheric ending, and I really hope that Tomb of the Cybermen picks up where this one leaves off. This episode has Edward Waterfield's death scene. It has Maxtible going full crazy villain, which is great. That was extremely enjoyable, mainly because Maxtible's already been a villain defined simply by his greed, and that greed ending him is a great way to do the story. I very much enjoyed that aspect of the story. It hit home with me, and it just sort of feels like it's a good way to conclude his story, so much so that he gets captured, he gets brainwashed by the Daleks, mainly because of his greed, which is, again, great. I very much enjoyed that. Victoria is now a new companion, which is another good decision overall. She gets a chance to shine as the companion and really shine as a person. I very much enjoyed Ever Waltling's performance, and she, gets the ending is very, very bittersweet, as pretty much everyone's dead. It's just like Kemal is saving Victoria. Everything is really, really good. A note on the reconstruction really quickly. As a reconstruction, this one's actually really, really good because a lot of it takes place is with the Daleks, and some of the surviving footage exists. And a lot of the stuff is recreated with CG. It's a very ambitious reconstruction. It doesn't always pull it off well, but it's still very, very good, and I won't hold it against it because it is just trying to reconfigure things that we can't really see. It's something that is very, very hard just to know and say, yes, we have this. It's sorry about that. This episode seems to be plagued with technical difficulties, but the reconstruction is a great way of doing it. It knows exactly how to basically emulate the thing, and basically the scene at the end is one of, I guess you could say, horror, because it very much is a horror ending. It very much tries to be scary, and it works very, very well. Patrick Troughton, he also the Doctor seems to have this responsibility to take Victoria with him, and I love that. That is an excellent sort of way of ending it all. And yeah, that's really all I have to say. So I'm going to give the Evil of the Daleks episode 7 a 10 out of 10. Of course, that averages every score up, and not surprisingly, the Evil of the Daleks get a total of 10 out of 10. Thank you, everybody, for watching this installment of the Ultimate Doctor Who Marathon. As we finished Series 4, please leave a like or dislike if you didn't like it. Leave a comment telling me why, and please subscribe for more of the Ultimate Doctor when the Ultimate Doctor Who Marathon returns with the Tomb of the Cybermen.